Welcome to Botanical Trails Through the Juniper Forest. I'm your host, Brian Heater. Each week, I'll have a different guest join me to explore a pair of interesting gins. We'll chat a little bit about the gin and the distilleries, throw in a bit of trivia, hopefully laugh a bit, and then we'll go off the beaten path. Although I say that this is a podcast about gin, really this is just an excuse for me to spend time with my friends. But that'll just be our secret. Okay, let's start exploring. My guest today is my cousin Marc Drake. Marc, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Super excited to be doing this.
Awesome, yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on this kind of, not the conclusion, but this will be a run of cousin or cousin-in-laws that I've had over the last few episodes. Okay, and I'm excited to wrap this up. We're actually going to do two Scottish gins, as with our great-grandfather, we're part Scottish.
Yep.
So similar to the same theme that I had when my sister Lori was on.
Remember that episode?
Yeah, but these are two other Scottish gins that I've had a chance to try, and we'll see what you think, but I think we're in for a treat today. Here, why don't you give this first one a try, and then I'll tell everyone about it. Cheers. Thanks for joining.
Yes, sir.
So, this is called T. Smith Gin. So, it's from Scotland. It came out in 2015. It was created to be the quintessential classic dry style of gin. So, contains at least 7 botanicals, including Ceylon or Ceylon tea, Ceylon, which is used to create a delicate and minty drinking experience. So when we do the sippers after the break, we'll have to see if we kind of taste a little bit of mint with that.
Maybe it's a Ceylon gin, and there's a Battlestar Galactica tie-in here.
Could be. Maybe that'll be one of our off-the-beaten-path.
There you go.
The tea is sourced from Sri Lanka. So there's sort of a tie-in. So they decided to go with that tea due to, they found out, the people who started this gin found out in 1867, a gentleman named James Taylor from Ackenblock, I'm sure I pronounced that all wrong, but he planted the very first tea plants. He started a tea plantation in Sri Lanka, which ended up turning that area into one of the finest tea growing regions in the world. So they wanted to specifically find a tea that was tied to their area, and so that's what they went with. So these two people came up with this concept. They partnered with Strathern Distillery. Strathern is located in Highland, Perthshire, which is on the outskirts of Perth, which was the first capital of Scotland, close to where when Scottish kings were traditionally crowned on the legendary Stone of Destiny there. So it is one of the smallest, if not the smallest distillery in Scotland. Relatively new. It was founded in 2013. They produce whiskey, rum, and gin, and then they've helped a number of Scottish gin brands with their contract distilling services. So they kind of contract and make this gin, but I think it's super flavorful. Now, I went back and looked because I had checked when Lori was on before, and where our Scottish relatives are from, it's sort of in between Edinburgh and Perth. It's called Fife, F-I-F-E, in that area, and it's sort of in between those two areas. So with this distillery, we're not too far off from where our relatives come from. So
that's super cool. And I remember the episode with Lori and talking about this, and I've been wanting to go to Scotland. I've been to the UK, I've been to England and Wales, but never to Scotland or Ireland.
Okay.
I totally want to go. Actually, I have an employee at work who went and just had a fantastic time. And I don't really in terms of our heritage and what ethnicity I mean, I'm just white American. At this point, there's enough. Can there be a everyone I'm German or I'm Scottish or I'm African or there? I think there needs to I think we're ready to define just USA.
Could be.
And I'm probably setting all sorts of alarm bells and hope I'm not being offensive, but I don't really know where, like, it's a little bit of Scottish, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. It's all East, it's all European.
Yep.
But it was fascinating to hear that's part. I knew about the Italian side.
Yep.
Maybe we're a little closer to full-bloodedness there, I think. But our great-grandmother was a great-great, I forget. But
it is our great-grandmother, nanny, Gemma. She was 100%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then Baba, whom she married, so our great-grandfather, Scottish, Irish, I think a bit French. And then I get English from my mom's side. So I have like most of the places in the British Isles covered, except for Wales. There's no Welsh blood that I can find anywhere.
Sure.
So yeah.
And I have no idea about my dad's side. So, but Drake has English and French, English and French.
Okay, and then we're German from the Heater side from our grandma.
Yeah. That's a
as well
very German name.
Yes, very German. So, but he I think was also maybe part Irish. But I'm not positive. I don't really know exactly because he passed when I was only like 4 before you came around, and just never found out because he was the only, as far as I know, only person from his family like up in Michigan. They came from Dayton, Ohio.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so we just never had any other relatives from his side of the family up around this area. So,
well. This gin is good, and I will say I don't really like gin. That's not my alcohol of choice. You mentioned that it's really sort of that classic dry gin flavor, and like I'm not a gin taster like you, but I can like it just tastes like quintessential gin, but not terrible.
Yeah, it's not. So they must distill it in that classic, dry style, but it's not. Super, in my opinion, like juniper forward. There's a nice like smoothness to it.
It
like I said, when we do the taster, I'll be interested to see what that's like. But yeah, and it's the flavor's not exactly the same, but sort of the style also reminds me of that other gin that I introduced you to that you like, Alchemist, that one from Spain. It also has just a really nice like smooth style.
It doesn't have the bite that I'm expecting, and that's maybe just because growing up, my dad might have drank cheaper gin or not, But
when they would have it at D's, it was always like Bombay or Tanqueray, right?
Yeah.
And Tanqueray is totally a London dry. Bombay Sapphire, they tried to make it a little different, but I mean, those are, when people think of gin and they're like, oh, it tastes like Christmas. It's got that juniper forward. That's sort of what they're thinking.
That's the one.
And these. Just aren't as juniper forward, but I just think it's really smooth and good.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. So about both this gin and the one we'll be doing, I got introduced to these by Rishi over from who owns Rishi's Beverages over on 28th Street, and fingers crossed. Either later this month or next, he's actually going to come on and be a guest, which will be fun.
Oh, nice.
So, so that'll be fun to
cool.
talk with an actual gin expert. So I just pretend to be, and I don't even pretend to be one. I just read a little bit about the gins, and I just like having them. So
hey, I mean, I'm the opposite of a gin expert, so like you've got some contrast there. So
So you went to. So what took you to England and Wales then?
I was in a professional boys choir when I was younger. You might have remembered this, so we toured England. There's a music contest there called the Eisteddfod Music Festival, and apparently has been going on for centuries. I don't know if it's still going on, but we were invited to participate and sing in the Eisteddfod Music Festival in Wales. But we also visited, during this European tour, so we landed in Manchester, England. We never made it to London. I think Manchester, Chester, this is a long time ago, like we're talking decades ago. We did end up going to Germany. England and Germany were the two countries we spent the most time. But when we were in the UK, we probably spent several days in Wales because of this music contest.
Oh, okay.
Because we had to go and, there were all sorts of choirs and from all around the world. And this was so interesting because we're all like 12-year-old boys and we're meeting, there's these girls choirs there. So we're flirting with all these girls, like just at that awkward age.
Yeah.
And oh, wow, let's international. Let's talk with these girls. And they would like, speak to us in English and then immediately turn to each other and like speak in, French or German or whatever country they came from, and we were just like blown away because we don't really learn other languages in this country. Yes, high schools and we teach things, but it's very elective and like, oh, whatever, maybe I'll take Spanish. But like in European countries, like they all learn English and can speak with it, and that was my first exposure to that. And just thought, oh my God, we need to up our game back here because like these kids are speaking 3-4 different languages, and they're like 12 or 13, and here we are just like Nintendo, like.
Yes, I think it helps though that they have like those neighbors on their border where and it's easy to get around there. But it'd be like being on the East Coast here, where you can drive and you can hit a couple states. You could drive there and hit a couple countries.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be super beneficial if you could like converse in those languages of those other places that you're in. So we get slightly spoiled being in such a large country where we're not. We don't necessarily have to learn a language to get around very easy, in my opinion. So that would be. Yeah. Now, did you end up in Vienna with that thing as well?
No. Okay. There is a Vienna. There is one of the most well-known boys' choirs is the Vienna Boys Choir. Okay. But we didn't end up in Vienna. We did, one of the cool things that we did during that trip was we sang in Westminster Abbey.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And what else? And sometimes what we would do is we'd be wandering around and we would pass through a cathedral. And they have cathedrals all over the place that are hundreds of years old Gothic cathedrals. And we just, if there wasn't a service going on, we just go in and sing. Okay. And these things have amazing acoustics.
Yeah.
And so we just go in and randomly sing a song or sing a hymn or whatever, and then other people would come in and like listen to us. We were just in our street clothes, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And that was a.
How many people were on this trip then?
Oh gosh, the choir itself was maybe, I want to say maybe 25, 30 boys. Okay. And there were probably 10 chaperones. Like my dad was one of them. Okay. And several of the other parents. And it was.
Was this outside of St. Monica? This was something like a separate thing, right?
Yeah, unaffiliated with schools. It was so I had my sort of like childhood best friend. His name is Jimmy B, and B is the initial of his middle name, but I thought he was called Jimmy B because he was always getting stung by bees. Like he was always just like poking at bees' nests and everything. He was always getting stung when we were like, I hadn't gotten stung by a bee until I was like 10, but he'd already racked up like 30 bee stings by the time we were like 6.
Wow.
Kid was crazy.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So anyway, he was in this choir, and I had changed schools and was trying to find friends, and and so my parents kind of was like, well, what do you think about this? You can be with other boys. Jimmy's in it, because I didn't go to school with Jimmy, although we were neighborhood friends, and so I didn't know any better, so I said yeah. And it was a big commitment. I was going to rehearsal in Battle Creek, which is a half hour from where we were, Kalamazoo, twice a week, and then there's always something on the weekend. So it was a big commitment for my folks. We carpooled with other people from Kalamazoo, but I did that for 3 years. And the first year we toured, and there was always a summer tour. And the first year we toured in Minnesota. We went to Minneapolis, St. Paul. Second year we went south, so Georgia, Virginia, and the third summer, which was my final year because I was out of 7th grade going into 8th grade. My voice was on the cusp of starting to be like, I'm not going to be singing the soprano much longer, and we toured Europe. That was super cool. Now, when you're in a boys' choir and you're 12 years old, ain't the coolest thing to do. So my friends would tease me about being in this choir. And I always had the best retort, which was like, okay, cool. So yeah, you're playing your soccer games. Maybe that's a little more cool than what I'm doing. But we're going to Europe and touring Europe and going to England and Germany. Like, is your soccer team taking you to Europe? And then they would usually kind of leave me alone after that.
Yeah. Now, nowadays, though, if you said that to kids, if they were playing like some type of club soccer, there's a chance they'd be like, yeah, we're going to practice because that's like how I ended up in France because, it's just much bigger. But no, that's awesome that you went there. And then...
So I didn't drink any gin when I was 12.
Well, that's good.
And we thought there was no drinking age at all, so we just thought we could have whatever. But we.
I think they do parts of Europe have it, but it's still like super young compared to ours. So.
Yeah, it's like 17 or something.
Yeah. So, well, you have a couple other cool places you've been to, but maybe we can talk about that in the second segment. So we talked about for trivia that I would go first.
Yes.
So let me give you the question. And again, these are not gin specific anymore. These are, I think they're like cocktail or something.
Okay. All right. So it looks like we have a multiple choice here.
Okay, good.
Also, this is further proof that I need reading glasses, but I can read it. During the 19th century, alcoholic ciders were advertised as a cure for what? A. Gout. B. Chlamydia. C. Chicken pox. D. The flu.
Alcohol, what were they called? Alcohol what?
Alcoholic ciders.
Oh, alcoholic ciders. They would probably, actually, they were probably saying that it could cure all of that. Part of me makes it think that this trivia always goes down the darkest path. So I want to say chlamydia, but part of me wants to say gout because actually alcohol can make gout flare up. I'll guess gout.
And you guessed correctly.
Oh,
it is
nice.
Gout. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there is kind of a slightly dark twist to these questions.
Yeah.
I find. This is only the second episode we've done it, but it's always like, oh, there's no way that's going to be the case. Like in the last one, I was like, what could be the worst sentence if you got caught for drunk driving? And it was the firing squad.
Oh, wow.
And it was multiple choice, but it was like, I mean, you're not going to guess firing squad.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I was like, wait a minute, does that actually say chlamydia, or did I just misread it because I don't have reading glasses? And I'm like, did I just make this awkward? But no, that is correct. One little bit about having needing reading glasses now, this is kind of new to me, although not really that new. When I started dating again in my early 40s, I realized that menus were getting harder to read, especially in dark places like restaurants. And so I would, when I would meet someone online and then we would agree to go on a date, I would usually pick the venue because, one, women like it when you plan. And so I thought that's a nice courtesy. And two, it solved the other problem of I'm going to look at the menu, pick out what I want. So I'm not like... on a
so
date,
you would like scope it out beforehand.
Yeah. So I'm not like looking old. Like, well, let me get my reading glass. I'm getting a little light out. You know, like, okay, boomer. Like, so that was that.
Nice. Yeah. For my actually, I have to take my glasses off to read. Like, I'm still good. Like with reading. Like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't had to go down that route yet. But I also don't want to get the bifocals because I think that would just be annoying.
Yeah. I couldn't have bifocals because I had so many other things going on with my eyes. Now I just need reading glasses, and that was actually by design. I had farsightedness, soon to become, I was born nearsighted. When you get in your 40s, you get, some people become farsighted as well, and you need reading glasses. Like, that's not uncommon. I also had alignment issues. I was born cross-eyed, so and you can correct all three of those things with glasses, but you can only correct two at a time. So my doctor and I were like, "Yo, we gotta fix at least one of these." So I actually fixed two. I got LASIK, so I'm now not nearsighted, and I got eye muscle surgery, so they actually point in the same direction, and I don't have double vision.
Didn't you have something when you were a kid too?
Yeah,
because you used to have to wear like.
I had an eye patch.
Yeah, eye patch, just like so did Amy, my sister. Yeah,
I was born severely cross-eyed, and so what ends up happening is you pick one eye, and your brain just pays attention to only what's coming in on your dominant eye because your eyes aren't pointed in the same direction. Your brain can't like synthesize two totally different images. So it ignores one and it picks the other. And I had picked my right eye. So my left eye, what ends up happening is you become the nerve pathways atrophy, and you actually can become blind out of your non-dominant eye. So they patch your dominant eye to force you to use your non-dominant eye.
Right,
so they did that, thankfully, and then they also did muscle surgery where they actually tightened the outer muscles to pull the eyes out and point straight. But people who are born with this typically need to have that done several times in their life. So I had another surgery done when I was like 18, and then my most recent one when I was like 43 or something.
Yeah, because Amy's only, like a year older than you, right?
Yeah.
You're born in 77.
Yep.
Amy was 76.
Yep.
So,
Wearing my
yes.
Gen X t-shirt here.
So growing up for a while with you two, when you're both with your it was like hanging out with a couple old pirates. So, all right. Well, I am going to go fix our second drink.
Okay.
And we'll be back.
Cool.
All right. We are back, and we're going to sample the two gins first. And so before we talk about the second gin, why don't we give the Tea House gin a little try? You don't need to shoot it. Just take like a couple little sips and see what you think. And let's see if we can find that mintiness.
Man, it's so smooth. It really... I'm expecting the hurt. It just never comes.
No. I don't know if I taste mint, though. But it is super smooth.
Yeah.
Like, I could almost pour this over ice and
you could just
garnish it with something, and you could probably enjoy it that way.
I'm not getting mint, either. But I have rarely slowly sipped gin, and I am doing so now and enjoying this.
Yeah, that's good. They do say one of the ways... So, the gin and tonic that we had was the Tea House gin, Mediterranean fever tree tonic, and then I put a little bit of lime in it.
Yep.
They also recommend making it with tonic, a lemon zest, and a little bit of mint, is they said another way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I liked it that way, so I just made it that way. But that was incredibly smooth. That's a good gin.
That is, yeah. I mean... Anyone who knows me well knows I have an alcohol face when I drink something and I don't like it and I try to hide that I'm not liking it. I'm just like, I don't think I don't, we'll see. No. There's going to be no alcohol face on that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that was good. So, All right, well, that was a Tea House. Our second gin is called Lusa Gin, also from Scotland. We'll try it, and we'll try the cocktail, and then I'll talk more about the gin and the distillery quick. But one interesting note is I believe this is the second gin now that we've had on the show where it's like a distillery owned and operated by women. So,
cool.
And it's a kind of an interesting little story on this one. But let's give this one a try. So let's try the...
Cheers.
Cheers. Right.
Oh, that's very different. And I'm definitely getting some, there's minty in that one.
Yeah. It's super smooth, though, as well.
Also,
it is not burn at all going down.
Waiting for the burn.
But it does have definitely a different flavor profile.
Yeah.
And as we'll discover, part of that may be there's twice as many botanicals in this one. So
I was going to say, it's more there's definitely, floral. It's also got a different mouthfeel. We're taking very small sips out of shot glasses, and the two have very different mouthfeels.
Yeah.
Which is, you don't think of it.
But that also, I think I could just pour over the rocks and drink. It's just tasty. So, let me tell you about the gin and the distillery, and then we'll give the cocktail a try, and I'll tell you what we made. So, this is Lusa Gin. This also came out in 2015. They describe it as it is an expression of the wild landscape on the Isle of Jura, which is where the people live and where the distillery is. It's situated off of Scotland's west coast. As I mentioned, it's run by 3 women, and they grow, gather, and distill 15 zesty and aromatic botanicals to pack as much flavor into every bottle as they can. I haven't tried this because it's summer here right now, but they said at cooler temperatures, you can actually see the botanical oils as a faint haze in the bottle.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Jura itself, that isle, is very remote. Only about 200 to 250 people live on it. The distillery is situated on the island at a spot called Ardlusa, which is 25 miles from, there's a fair there. You can only get there via ferry, and then you go 25 miles up this road, a single track road, and that gets you to the distillery. The distillery's owned and run by 3 women, Georgina Kitching, Sophie Fletcher, and Claire Fletcher. And from what I could tell, they only make like 2 gins and a gin liqueur. Like that's what they do. So now the cocktail I made, I found a recipe actually online, and then it was also sort of backed up by the app Ginventory. But it's a gin and tonic, but it's made with there's a slice of lemon in it and a sprig of rosemary, and then I also used, as usual, my favorite tonic, which is the Fever Tree Mediterranean. So let's give this cocktail a try.
Yeah, I'm impressed by the rosemary here.
Oh yeah, well, that's about as fancy as you're going to get in this place. So.
Ooh, yeah. Man, that is
good.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, that's a good gin.
Wow, yeah. With the lemon, I can see and the lemon zest makes sense because obviously this podcast can't see, but I've got a lemon it's a wedge, and the rind is facing up. So as I'm drinking it, the lemon rind is like right at my nose. It's really good.
I totally planned for that to happen.
Yeah. Sly guy. Hey, do you have a microplane, by the way? Do you can you zest lemon?
No. All right. I
right.
should probably get that
I
at
will.
some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Microplane, everybody, get one.
But this is, really good.
Wow. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and the rosemary in there too. Like rosemary and lemon actually are 2 ingredients often put together when you cook chicken. And so like there's
I will honestly say, at this point, if you were like list your top 10 favorite gins, these 2 would be top 10. And there's a good chance Lusa is knocking on top 5.
Lusa's right up. Like I have not had the number of gins you have.
Yeah, well, that's probably good for you.
So
you and your liver.
But but this is probably the best gin I've ever had.
Wow. Well,
I mean,
I'm super happy that you like it.
Best gin cocktail that I've ever best tasting gin. It's very interesting on its own, but then this cocktail is great.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, can we have a third and a fourth segment?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
we'll just keep going. This gin and just repeat.
So, as I mentioned in the last segment, you've been to a couple of other places that I haven't been, but I find interesting. And one was you've been to New Zealand.
Correct.
And then also you, through a job you had previously, worked on, it was a documentary, I believe, and it took you to Cuba.
I went to Cuba, yes.
Yeah. So how was Cuba? And I have a question, but talk about it first, and then I'll tell you what my question is.
Sure. So I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to go to Cuba in my early 20s when I was filming a documentary with a philanthropist from the University of Michigan. And I was able to go, at the time, it was more restrictive in terms of travel and embargoes. I think there are still restrictions in place, but at the time you had to get like a special...
It was much harder to get in there when you went there.
Yeah. But because it was through the university and it was for a philanthropic sort of documentarian, there was no problem. Cuba was... So much of it is what you would expect, like a land frozen in time, in that you've got all these old cars that people still run because they haven't had new automobiles. And it was what was fascinating to me were, because it's a communist country, or at least at the time, this is like 2001, so I don't know that a lot has changed politically there, but because everyone makes the same amount of money, they're all rations from the government, you had super highly educated people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, driving taxi cabs because they could get tips in American dollars. They weren't actually practicing their fields because of this. You had no, very limited expression of, like we have First Amendment rights. Nothing like that exists there. You say the wrong thing, you disappear. And there's guys with machine guns on every corner. Like there's some scary shit going on there. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
No, it's fine.
You have a bleep button. But the people I was with were so not like. They would give you the shirt off your back. Like everyone was so like, I just felt like a entitled white person, like, which I was and am, like being there, like undeserving of like people like just cooking and being so generous with their time and their resources, and I would eat as little food as possible because I knew people didn't have a lot of food, but they would always offer me seconds and thirds, and I would no, it's okay. Everyone was super, super cool. Like, I would go back in a heartbeat. It was fascinating, and not only, and I got to be in Havana and walk like the Malecon, which is this famous, it's like Lakeshore Drive of Chicago, but Havana. And then we also went to the countryside and visited numerous like very rural areas. We went to several Jewish cemeteries, and I mention that is because the person that I was filming for is a Cuban-born Jew, and people don't associate Judaism and Jewish people with Cuba, but there is a small but very vibrant community of Jews on the island of Cuba, and we were there and went to I filmed Shabbat services and went to see people recite Torah in prep for their bat mitzvah. It was really, really fascinating. They've got the reason there's a Jewish community there is because back in the Inquisition in the 1500s, you had Jews getting the hell out of Europe. We kind of have a history of Jews needing to flee Europe, unfortunately. But during the Spanish Inquisition, you had a lot of Jews in Spain, Spanish-speaking Jewish people, leaving and going to other Spanish-speaking parts of the world, Cuba being one of them.
Sure, yeah, that would explain, yeah.
And so anyone who's heard of Sephardic Jews or Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardic Jews are those that come from Spain because Sepharad is the word in Hebrew for Spain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yep. And Ashkenazi tends to refer to like more of the East, like the European, Polish.
Whenever I hear that, I think of like Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So, but you sort of answered my question because it was going to be like, whenever like there's like an article in a paper or a magazine and it's about Cuba and they have pictures, it looks like the 1950s and 60s, but they're like, no, this is like now, but it's like everything looks like it's like just carried over. It's like time stopped there.
Yeah,
and it's not as, I guess, lack of a better term, like as modern as, like it's just like frozen in time, sort of like you mentioned.
There's a frozen in timeness. That's correct. And like I did get to witness in the kind of not so nice areas of Havana, like what true like squalor and poverty actually looks like. And when you have people, 10 or 15 people sharing a dank room with no electricity in the middle of a whole bunch of street with a whole bunch of other just rooms that just pour out onto the street, like it really put things in perspective. There is the frozen in timeness, there's the abject poverty, and then you have, it's a tourist destination for Europeans, not Americans. And so you have very nice hotels as well. But the normal population can't go into those hotels. So you do have like all the modern amenities. If you go as a tourist from Europe,
sure.
To get there from the United States, you just go to Mexico and leave Mexico and go to Cuba, get a flight from another country, because then you're kind of going around the embargoes because there's no direct flights from here, or they're very limited. But yeah, it's the disparity. I mean, you think you got it bad in this country, it's even worse there because you've got the top, 0.1%, and then like literally everybody else just really struggling to get by.
Yeah. And so how long were you there? And what was the documentary on again? Was it about the Jewish community?
It was about the Jewish community of Cuba.
And how long did you get to stay there?
I was there for, I think, 10 days. This was super interesting. I went there on, I came back through Miami a little bit earlier than the rest of the crew. And I ended up actually staying with another Sephardic Jew who lived in Miami for like a day or two, just like, hey, you can stay at our house. And it was like fascinating to go to like Cuban restaurants in Miami with actual people from Cuba and also having a Jewish background. And it was like, I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school, had no sense, just white cornbread, Kalamazoo, Michigan. And to see this was just incredible.
Yeah.
Opened my eyes and really put things in perspective.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That you got to go and like see that place. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, and then you'd been when you were in New Zealand. You were just in New Zealand, right? You didn't go to Australia.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. New Zealand the whole time. The reason being is, I went. It was the honeymoon with my first wife, and we talked about going to Australia. And our travel agent said, 2 weeks is not enough for Australia. Consider New Zealand, but quite frankly, 2 weeks is not enough for either of those places. I would love to go back. We started on the North Island and spent 1 or 2 days in various cities, just kind of making our way south, and then we jumped from Queenstown on the North Island to Christchurch on the South Island. I think Queenstown. Was it Queenstown at the bottom of the North Island? I might be getting my geography around. I might be incorrect. But anyway, we ended up in Christchurch on the South Island, and it's so amazing. Like, they filmed Lord of the Rings there for a reason, and this was after the second movie I think had come out. So like it was like peak Lord of the Rings time, and so we stayed at these like bed and breakfasts, and there was always like one room or like one villa they had that was like made to look like a Hobbitville. Like it was just there was lots of like Hobbit stuff going on. But outside of that, it's just the landscape and all of the places we stayed were unbelievable. I would love to go back. Everyone was super cool.
Now, I've not been in New Zealand, but is it, I mean, it's not far from Australia. So is it similar to Australia where about every other living thing there can kill you?
No, it's not like that. It's more...
How did that happen? Why is everything that wants to kill you hanging out in Australia?
You know?
And New Zealand just sounds like it's like sheep and like beautiful, like green.
Yeah, everything makes you feel warm and cozy in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Everything
and meanwhile,
wants to kill you
in Australia it's like, oh, that's really pretty. Don't touch it. It'll kill you.
Here's a spider the size of a king crab. Like... what?
Yeah.
No, New Zealand. It was like there was more sheep than people, and we saw sheep crossing the road. There's a really cool town called Napier on the North Island, and it's near vineyards where they grow really good Sauvignon Blancs. And it is the Marlborough region. So, not Marlborough is.
Not the cigarettes.
Not the cigarettes. Pronounced the same way, but spelled differently. There's some more letters and GH at the end. And there's not a cowboy, but or cancer. But it's vineyards, and it was beautiful. And we were driving around these vineyards. We were gonna do this like this tour called the Grape Escape, and I ended up going into a store to buy a new shirt because I might have happened to spill wine on the one that I was wearing, and the store owner said, no, don't do that. And he took
don't buy a new shirt?
No. He gladly sold me a new shirt.
Oh, okay.
But he said, don't go on the Grape Escape. That's shit. You know, he said it just like that. He gave me. He took an envelope, and on the back of the envelope goes, here's what you need to do. Go to this vineyard. Go ask for this person. Go here. Go here. Go here. So we took our car. We're driving on the opposite side of the. We're driving on the left-hand side of the road instead of the right, like we do here. And we're tipsy. So and it's kind of mountainsidey. Sheer cliffs. So there was a little bit of There's danger.
A bit of an adventure involved then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. No, that does sound fun. So
yeah. Oh, if you're into wine tasting, the Marlborough region of New Zealand and the city of Napier is all Art Deco. Everything's like from the 1930s. It was awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would like to go check that out.
Yeah.
And especially since everything there won't kill me. Like
everything there will not kill you.
That's totally appealing to me. So also, before we get to trivia and off the beaten path,
Queenstown on the South Island. Wellington is on the North Island, where we went from to Christchtchurch. That's
okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
It was bothering me.
So there's 2 main islands.
Yeah,
and you got to visit both.
Yep.
Is one better than the other?
I would say they're different. And I'm not trying to like play favorites or be politically correct here. Like they're just totally different. The North is a little bit more populous. You've got more geothermal, like hot springs and things like that in the North. There's a little bit more like culture, you could say, in terms of like places you go.
Is it more populated?
It is more populated.
Okay.
Yeah. The South Island is much more the Lord of the Rings, sheer rock cliffs. Like we were in a gorge on a boat, and there's cliffs that go 2,000 feet up and 2,000 feet down from the level of water. And it was very windy because it's a wind tunnel going through this like gorge, and there's these waterfalls, and the waterfalls weren't even making it to the water because the water was just being dispersed by the wind. They were falling and then going sideways.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Everything I've seen from that place looks like slightly amazing.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, that would be.
Yeah. It's not slightly. It's fully amazing.
All right. Okay, before we go to trivia and off the beaten path, one other quick thing. So you are very similar to me in that you're the oldest of three.
That is
the only
correct.
boy, two younger sisters.
Yep.
Youngest sister is producing offspring for the next generation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've told you, but then Gemma, my oldest niece from Amy, is going to USC in the fall.
I heard about that.
Your sister is living in LA.
Out there. Yeah.
Can she promise me she'll be there for all 4 years for Gemma to get through school now?
Maria, if you're listening to this podcast...
Of course Maria listens to the podcast, right? Just kidding. Not at all. We'll have to
shoot Brian a text that states that you will be there for all 4 years.
No. I rest easier knowing that Maria's there.
Yeah. Does she know what field of study? Or just going...
International relations.
Okay. Right.
With as of when we spoke a few weeks ago, with a minor in consumer behavior.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Gemma has got a good head on her shoulders.
Yeah.
And she will do well. She, let me see if I remember this correctly. She was taking French in high school, and then was also she took at least 2 semesters of Italian at the University of Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Is going to continue with those, and then also take Spanish, if I remember correctly then, and then, international relations, and then, and then looking at a minor in consumer behavior. And
wow.
She'll
staying in the romance languages, though. That's yeah.
So she will do well.
Yeah.
So, okay. Are you ready for your trivia?
I am.
All right. Okay. Dos Equis? Aqueous?
Yep. Dos Equis.
Dos Equis, sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes. First brewed in 1900, was originally named Siglo XX or Siglo XX to signify what? Again, it is multiple choice. So your options are A, peace and love, B, the new century, C, future success, or D, wealth and fortune. And I can repeat it.
Repeat those again. Sorry.
So Dos Equis, first brewed in 1900, was originally named Siglo XX to signify what? And your options are A, peace and love, B, the new century, C, future success, or D, wealth and fortune. And Siglo is Siglo, if that helps at all.
Yeah, I was trying to think, what does that mean? I don't know much Spanish there. So
I wouldn't have a clue on this one.
Gosh, the new century doesn't make sense because that XX is just 20, and that's 1900. But I'm going to go with the was it wealth and
fortune? D.
Wealth and fortune. D.
No, it was B, the new century.
The new century, really?
Over 1900, they must have.
Yeah. I mean,
that must have somehow signified that it was like the start of
XX or MCM. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, cool.
All right. Well, it is time for Off the Beaten Path.
Off the Beaten Path.
And we had decided beforehand that you wanted to go first, so you can kick us off.
So, I think it's really cool that we've spent some time on this episode. Your youngest sister, my cousin Amy, has come up a few times. So this is why I chose the Off the Beaten Path location that I chose. Since I was 9 or 10 years old, every summer, maybe there's been one or two that I've missed in my adulthood, but my dad would take us all camping. Started out with just me, and then when my sisters got old enough, we would go up north. And I don't know if you ever knew Butch, my dad's
Oh,
friend.
yeah.
Yeah. So he knew all the places up there. And up there is northern Michigan. People have probably heard of, obviously Torch Lake and Traverse City and the Cherry Festival, and if you're a diehard, maybe, you've heard of Mackinac Island and Mackinac City, and if you're a diehard, maybe Leelanau Peninsula and Leelanau State Park, which is where we spent most of our time camping. That was a perennial favorite. Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes is up there as well. So these are all things that people probably know about, or at least if you're from Michigan, and even if you're not, you've probably heard of at least one. There's a small lake. Now, there are many lakes in Michigan, but there's a small inland lake, and it's only inland by like 50 feet from Lake Michigan, called North Bar Lake. And it's really cool, is because a small sand dune hill is what separates it from Lake Michigan. And there's a small little tributary that connect the two. And it's very sandy, it's relatively small, and it's off the beaten path. It had been well off the beaten path for many, many years. Butch knew about it. I don't know how. He must have discovered it on a county map magazine or county map.
One of those AAA maps from back in the day.
Yeah, one of those like county map things. And he showed me and my dad and sisters this place. And you could only get there you'd take a 2-track dirt road, and then you just kind of stop, walk maybe a quarter mile, and then you're at this really cool North Bar Lake. Now, I want to say it was maybe 15 years ago, the state of Michigan wised up to people going there. So it's not exactly off the beaten path because they did put in a parking lot. Now it's a small parking lot and there are rarely other people there. So I'm still going to think that this counts because most people aren't going to know about this on their own. So one year, we're up north camping. It's me, Maria, Carrie, Dad, and we decide one afternoon to go to North Bar Lake. So we pack sandwiches, we get some food, we get our sunblock, and also the water, because it's fresh because it's being fed by Lake Michigan, but it's not Lake Michigan, so it's a few degrees warmer. So we actually would go there and like soap off and bathe. 3-day camping trip, get kind of stinky. So we park in the parking lot. We get all our stuff. We walk down to North Bar Lake. We kind of come through the clearing, and now we're on the lake, and we see 2 heads in the water. People are swimming, and they're kind of swimming towards us, and we don't really think anything of it. There's no other people there, and there's no other people in the parking lot. This is not a place where you're going to run into people that you know. So we're kind of walking along the shoreline of this North Bar Lake, and we're looking for a place. We're just about to set up our little blankets and towels and hang out for a little bit, and we hear this Paul Drake, that's my dad's name, being called from this person in the water. And what? So we look, and it turns out it's Amy and Andy. So we ran into Amy and Andy at North Bar Lake. To think of like there were 4 of us, 2 of them. We were the only 6 people there, but to be in the same remote place at the same random time as blood relatives is pretty effing cool.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And so North Bar Lake, if you're ever up north and you want a nice little swimming hole, check it out. It's not going to be crowded, and if it's in the middle of summer, it's just an awesome place to be.
That's awesome.
And if Amy was there, it's awesome. She knows all the cool outdoor places.
That is the first location spot we've had as off the beaten path, so that is great. Real quick.
Cool.
It wasn't a camping trip, but do you happen to remember when we were kids, your dad had a motorhome?
Oh, yeah.
And it was
totally
like,
remembers. Yeah.
I want to say it was me, Lori, Amy, you, and I think Maria.
Yep.
Carrie either wasn't here yet or was just a baby and didn't go.
She was a baby and didn't go because it was summer between 2nd and 3rd grade for me.
Okay. And your dad took us like up north. Oh, yeah. So it was like him and the 5 of us.
Yeah.
For like
I totally remember
close to like a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always been like, did he lose a bet? Like, how did he end up getting stuck with 5 little kids? Like, so you were what? 2nd grade?
I was 8 or 9, yeah.
You were 8 or... No, 2nd grade, you're like 6 or 7. So, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're 7.
Yeah.
So I'm like right. 14.
Yeah, you're older.
So he had a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, 8,
Amy,
7, and then how much younger is Maria than you?
5 years, 2. Was she there? Yeah, maybe she was 2 or 3.
I think she was there.
I don't know. I'll ask him. But here's the thing.
First of all, that was a super fun trip.
It was.
But now when I look back when I'm older, I'm just like,
he loved doing
how did
stuff.
he end up taking the 4 or 5 of us on that trip for a week?
I think he just needed, I'll ask him. But I've asked him, hey, when you would take us on vacation or camping or, did you get annoyed? Parents don't have fun when they're with their kids. Let's be real. And he's like, no. I mean, yeah, you guys would get annoying at times and, kids will be kids, but I always had a good time.
No, your dad would always take me and do fun stuff.
He always loved showing us things.
Yeah. He took me to see Star Wars when I was 7.
How many times did you get to see Star Wars? I like this story.
The original, so it came out in 77. I got to see it 7 times in the theater, which was big back then. So, but I mean, your dad took me. I think Uncle Jim took me.
Yeah,
I think Uncle Dan took me. Dee took me.
Yep.
Mom. And then somehow I got in 2 other times. I mean, so yeah, I mean that was a huge. I love that movie, and also and I think I've mentioned this before. So I saw it Maple Hill. I saw it at the Plaza 2.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, little one.
And I probably saw it out at Easttown, but Maple Hill and Plaza 2 were the ones where I saw it the most. And at the time, there was 2 different cuts of the film, and one of them had the stormtroopers riding that giant lizard that then showed up in the remake 20 years later.
Really? Yeah.
That a lot of people were like, what is this? And there was also a toy that came out when we were kids, and my friends didn't know what the toy was because they had all seen the version that didn't have them. It was when the stormtroopers were on Tatooine, and one of them was riding this big lizard, and that lizard came out as a toy when we were kids, and they didn't know why is a stormtrooper riding a dinosaur? And I'm like, oh no. In one of the versions, they're hunting for CP3O and R2D2 on this lizard. So
if George Lucas is listening to this podcast, stop. There's something called a final cut, and you need to respect it.
So that's how that turned out. And then in college, I'm pretty sure it was my freshman year. Your dad came up one time, took me out to dinner.
Oh, that's cool.
And ordered what did he order? Oysters or escargot, something slimy, and you had to take it with butter. And he was like, listen, if you're going into business, you're going to have to eat this at a business meeting. So let's start you off. It was just it was so funny that he was thinking down the road of what was going to, it was just.
He's looking out for you.
He was, for sure. Yeah. I'm very,
That's awesome.
Very fortunate. Yeah, but it always just makes me laugh thinking back. Okay. My off the beaten path. I was trying to tie something into either Scotland or you and I, and I just didn't come up with anything. So I just decided, okay, what's something that I think would make a good option? And I chose a graphic novel. And the graphic novel I went with is Ghost World.
Ghost World.
Now, this may be familiar to people because it got turned into a movie in 2001. I think it was one of the first movies Scarlett Johansson was ever in. So, but originally it was a graphic novel. It's by Daniel Klaus. He actually had a comic book or graphic novel series called 8 Ball that would come out, and he would just have different little segments, different little stories. And so sort of the whole story got told through 8 Ball between 1993 and 1997. Finally, in 1997, Fantagraphics, which was the publisher of 8 Ball, just took all the serialized portions of Ghost World and just made it into a book, and that's when it first came out. And basically, and you would know this if you've seen the movie, but it follows 2 best friends, Enid and Rebecca. They've kind of recently graduated from high school. They kind of spend their time wandering around their town, which is never named specifically, but wandering around their town. And they're teenagers, right? So they're criticizing popular culture. They're criticizing people that they've just run into, and they're just kind of wondering what are they going to do with their lives. So it is, as a lot of his stuff is, there's dark humor to it. But the story itself was renowned for being a very frank treatment of like high school adolescence or post high school adolescence. So, and as I mentioned, in 2001, it got turned into a movie. It was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. It didn't win, but it got nominated. And the movie is good as well. It's Scarlett Johansson plays Rebecca. Steve Buscemi's in the movie. I mean, the movie's good, but the graphic novel is really well done. And then you can find like a whole collection of. It's called like. I want to say it's called 20th Century 8-Ball, or maybe it's. But you can get just a collection of 8-Ball, and it is just totally like dark humor.
Okay.
And he's continued to just publish like other things. But his storytelling is really well done. Not for the faint of heart. It's not lollipops and it's like kind of like dark humor stuff, but it's just good. I got introduced to it by Jim when I would go visit him in San Francisco in the 90s, and he actually just had a new graphic novel come out this past year or a year and a half ago called Monica that was really well done. His storytelling has become, I feel like, more in depth as he's gotten older. But if you want to kind of like dabble and see something that's really well done, not super dark as some of his stuff like Death Ray and things like that, but Ghost World is my pick for Off the Beaten Path.
Okay.
Have you read any of his stuff before?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
That sounds very, like, dark humor. You had me at dark humor.
Oh, his stuff is... Yeah. If you like dark humor, you would love his stuff.
Dark humor and cocktail peanuts. I'm eating all your... There's peanuts next to the microphone to cleanse our palate, and I'm just like...
Gin and tonics and cocktail peanuts. I'm sorry, they just like... It's two of my favorite things.
I'm sorry for eating all your peanuts.
No, that's what they're here for, so... Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And we'll see everyone next time. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to subscribe to us on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts. Also, I want to take a quick minute to thank Darin VanderMolen for all of his help behind the scenes. Without him, this podcast probably wouldn't even exist, and his help is greatly appreciated. Hope you have a great week, and we will look forward to seeing you the next time we go down the botanical trails. This has been a Shits and Giggles production.